to OverDrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles, McLennan, Dear Hazy B coming up at 6:30. Luke Wilson and Al's brother in an hour. I have spoken with my partner. We are on the same page, and we will be triumphant. I have no questions about that.
Let us know. What are you taking? Like, it's not like we're going to be fumbling.
Well, let me. I'll give you a little tease. Okay. We had the Stones last week to do something no one else would do.
And you're doing it again.
We have the Stones to do something no one else will do this week. All right? That's all I'm going to tell you for now.
I know exactly what it is. You're going Buff KC and you're taking Buff.
Possibly. That's
I know.
I
I know exactly what you're doing.
He's just
like,
a Josh
clip
Allen
this,
lover.
JP.
I love Josh Allen, man.
They're going Buff KC, and they're taking Buff.
Okay. Well, I guess you'll find out officially in an hour. And if we end up doing that, Luke's mind is going to be in a blender, right? Because he's happy today. Pete Carroll got hired, right? Pete Carroll got hired down in Vegas.
Yeah.
So him and Tom Brady are going to be boys, and Tom, I guess, is a part of that hiring process.
Dude, how about Houston gassing their offensive coordinator? Because why? Stroud had an off year. That's his fault?
Generally the way it goes, right?
Dude,
get a
come
quarterback.
on. That's part of the accountability. Oh, he didn't play well this year. Year two, offensive coordinator fired.
I know.
No accountability.
I wonder if that's an owner, half the time or more than half the time saying, you got to do something. I'm not happy. Something didn't go right. They won a playoff game. They won the division. They made the playoffs. Like, Houston was a disaster for a while
Up
with
and
the
down,
Sean
mediocre
Watson
all
stuff.
year.
And yeah, exactly. They didn't have a great year. They still got in, and they beat San Diego, or L.A., I should say, the Chargers, in that wild card game. But, yeah, the coaching shuffle is pretty wild, and the only teams that haven't hired anybody are New Orleans and Dallas. The Cowboys still haven't hired anybody, and no one's left. So, unless they get Deion Sanders, which I don't think is going to happen. I don't think Deion's going to go to Dallas. Who are they going to possibly hire? And I think this is going to be more proof that no one wants to work for Jerry Jones. Why would you want to be under the shadow of, or in the shadow of Jerry Jones? Why would you possibly want to take that job on? So, yeah, Luke will join us in an hour. Al's brother coming up. Mike Johnson will join us here in a moment. We were talking about Brad Marchand and his little Undertaker move on Nick Cousins. Before we get to Johnny, do you want to hear some Paul Bear just to kind of set the tone for the hour and the conversation? Let's hear from the Paul Bear back in the day.
Special treat! My Undertaker will defeat you and throw you into the coffin, but you'll still be alive. Oh, yes, you will. And then my Undertaker will slam the lid shut. And then all your fears will become reality. Oh, yes.
Imagine that guy's job is to carry on like that.
Yeah, that's how he operates from city to city.
Oh, yes.
That's Joe Sacco now. Joe Sacco's the Paul Bear.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes, my Marchand will come and get you. And he will choke you out, Nick Cousins.
Man, oh, man.
Yeah, what a scene. Like, even Travis kind of, like, what Green's not going to say.
Yeah.
It's just
he's
not the way
getting
the
into
NHL
it.
operates. He's not going to get into it. It's not his player. Like, his player was on the wrong side of it. But he said, I've never seen that before. Maybe not during a game, anyway. He did it in a game. Maybe some of that activity is taking place in the room or something like that.
Yeah.
But not necessarily on the ice during a game.
You go to the bar with a tough guy like Kelly Chase. I'm pretty sure has choked somebody out at the bar or in a cab. Wasn't there an incident?
Cab story, yeah. He told Artie Lang that one time he was driving in New York and the guy started smoking. I think he started smoking weed and Chaser started choking the guy.
Through the window.
Through the little cubby. Like, choking the guy. Driving through Manhattan. He's like, put that out, man.
Yeah.
The best part of that is, I'm sure his thought was, you're putting my life in danger. But choking the guy while he's driving, is not, dangerous.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of our good friend Kelly Chase. Here's Mike Johnson joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Did you ever have the urge to take your glove off and choke anybody while you were playing?
I mean, I might have thought about wanting to smack someone or choke someone, but didn't quite pull it off. Two thoughts. One, Chaser's paws are so big, I'm surprised they can fit through like the little billfold hole to
Right.
get the cabbies. But the other part about it, though, and I honestly, I mean, that's a pretty personal, like visceral thing to react to. A guy putting his bare hand around your neck to choke you. But what I thought is that what that gives Nick Cousins in that case, or anyone, you have absolutely free reign to do anything you want to Brad Marchand's hand. Anything. You could cut it in half. You could break it. You could slash it. You could chop it. And with impunity, you would never get in trouble. What do you, like, you're going to go to something like this one, like, he was choking me, so I slashed his hands. I'm sorry he broke 4 fingers. Tell him not to choke me without a glove. Like, he should have chopped at his hand so hard. Like, so hard with whatever he wanted, because you could do whatever, because you've done nothing wrong. You're just literally protecting yourself from a guy choking you. That was weird. And given that it's been Marchand and the stuff he's done before, the lick and everything else, I'm surprised he even bothered to do that. But that was my other reaction. I watched it. I was doing the game in the studio last night, and Noodle's calling it. And I'm like, how did it, like, chop his hand off? Break it. Like, that's my reaction.
Did he get fined? Should he get fined for that or something, Johnny? It's stupid. For the stupidity alone.
Well, that would be the fine. 20 maximal allowable for being dumb. Like, that would be the explanation of the video. Like, just, I don't know. I guess to be unsportsmanlike conduct, I don't know what the actual rule would be violating, but yeah, you'd have every right to do whatever you want to make him stop doing that, because that is not allowed.
Yeah, that was wild, man.
Johnny, you mentioned it. You were in studio. I was calling the game. I don't even know. I can't remember. I'd have to go back on the broadcast how I reacted, because I was kind of paralyzed. You're watching it going, did I just see what I just thought I saw? Like, is he choking him? Like, and it's a concentrated effort. It goes back to the replay. You see him take his glove off, put it underneath in his armpit, and then reach out with the Undertaker. Like, it was just a weird transaction, and I don't know. I mean, I don't think they got penalties, did they? I don't know if there was offsetting penalties.
No. I'm like, did we just see that? Because you're right. It's not like it was in a scrum where his glove had come off and he reached for him and just sort of instinctively grabbed at him. He's like, no, I'm going to take my glove off. We're going to tuck it away so it doesn't get to the ice. I'm very going to calmly reach out and put my hands around his throat. It was just so bizarre. So, like, you want to fine him? Like, I think even he would be like, yeah, I probably deserve that one. That was, you probably can't suspend him because I guess he'd say he didn't really mean it. He just sort of put it there. Didn't really do any damage. But yeah, you could fine a guy for just being dumb.
Well, that's it. I mean, Gino Retta pointed out, like, they've suspended guys for doing the throat slashing thing. So you can do that, which doesn't touch anyone, doesn't hurt anyone. You're suspended, but you actually grab the guy, and it's swept under the rug, especially considering the guy we're talking about. Like, he's licked multiple players in his career, which is a wild thing to say.
8 times? Like he's been suspended so many times. And and the throat slash one, like, I get why you don't want to do it. It's a bad look. But no one, like, I've been told somebody's going to kill me hundreds of times on the ice. You don't ever feel like someone's actually going to kill you. So, like, there's no real threat there. It's just for the visual. It's the same visual of putting your hands on a person's throat, like bare hands.
And guys, you would have to think after the last licking incident, somebody got in his ear and said, any other thing goofy or against the grain, we're really going to hammer you. And he went ahead and did it. It's stupid stuff.
Yeah, and I don't think they're going to hammer him. But anyway, in the end, I guess, Boston, they're victorious. They win. They're at home against Colorado tomorrow. Ottawa's at home against the Leafs tomorrow. And we were discussing the Rangers, who won again last night. They're 7-0-3, and now, like, they're winning big now, right? Like, it's it's not like Shesterkin's making 50 saves and he's battled them back into the race. They look kind of like what you expected them to look like all year. And we figured we'd throw another mini-Gerry at you because we know you love that. What's your Jerry's percentage? Mini-Gerry on the Rangers making the playoffs.
I'm going to say 67%.
Wow.
Because, I think they are so much better than they were playing when they were struggling. I think they have one of the best goalies in the world, now back on his game. He had a little reset, little injury, and he's playing really well. And the teams that are around them are good, but I think that's why it's 67%, because there's just so many teams, so many things could happen. that will make it maybe a little bit tougher. But they're the best team of the bunch down there, and they're probably going to add more players, maybe even JT Miller. They just tried on the weekend, so they're probably going to continue to get talent on their roster. I think it's more likely than not. The biggest challenge for them is that they're battling for so many teams for 2 or they're 3 spots now. Like, are we okay with where are we at with Tampa? Is Tampa home and clear because they played so many fewer games, or are they now part of the bunch? Because in the standings, they're part of the bunch, but they've got 3 or 4 games in hand on a lot of guys.
Yeah, I think
they're in the bunch personally. I would give them the benefit of the doubt. Like, I would say there's a 67% chance that they'll finish with that 3rd seed in the Atlantic. Boston's clearly not out of it. Like, they've played more games than anybody. Like, Boston's in the bunch with Columbus and New York.
They're in the
Ottawa.
bunch. They're right in the thick of it.
They're right in the middle of it. Tampa's always been a bit separate of it, but like you said, Johnny. Sure, they've played fewer games, but not 10 fewer games. They played a few games less than everyone else, and they got 53 points. So they're kind of in the bunch until they prove otherwise, or they win those games that they have in hand, because there's no guarantee they're going to do that.
Yeah.
And I go back and forth. Like, I kind of had it at 6 teams sort of spoken for in the East, but now I'm sort of waffling as well. Like, maybe it's really just 5, and maybe it's just Florida and Toronto in the Atlantic, and that's all that you can really say. Yeah, they're going to make it. The other ones are likely to. Tampa's very likely to make it with their track record, with the standings, with the points percentage, all that stuff. But once you get in that group's messy, and it's like quicksand-ish. Like, once you're in that group, it's hard to pull yourself out of it, because everyone's picking up points and everyone's shuffling and jockeying and 3-point games, and it's hard to get separation. And we're coming up on 50 games played, guys. There's 30 games left. Like, we're coming down the home stretch here pretty soon. Once we get to 4 Nations, post 4 Nations, there's going to be 24 games left. That is a sprint time, and to think that you're going to go one way or the other, plus or minus 6 or 8 points, it's probably not going to happen. You'd have to go super hot. You'd have to go 18-6, which is unlikely to happen for any of these teams. So yeah, Tampa is sort of unfortunately drifted towards the pack.
So, Johnny, you mentioned the Rangers adding, could you see JT Miller? Like, I still don't understand this JT Miller, and it'll obviously transition in Vancouver. We were going to get there eventually, but what do you make? This is the one thing I wanted to bring up, and actually wanted everybody to weigh in on it too. Now, because things are public, we forgot, JT Miller took a leave of absence for a month. If you're trading for a player, you better find out what that was, and if that is a reoccurring situation, whether it's injury, mental health, all of that type of stuff. With this particular player you're trading for, that, we'll call it quote unquote baggage, comes with you. So if you're the team that's trying to acquire him, you need to do a deep dive on everything that comes with that player. So I could see why this process might have been held up on a lot of different fronts, because if you're adding somebody that potentially could struggle in the future on a lot of off-ice stuff, on-ice stuff, you mention it, it's a big gamble to add a player of that caliber, because he's a fantastic player.
Yeah, the easy part of that question for him is he a good player? That's the easy part. Do you want him on your team when he's playing well and he's right? You're like, of course, every single team wants them on his team. But what makes it even trickier is, of course, that you need to understand what the nature is of the issue in Vancouver. Whatever is going on between Pettersson and him, if anything, if not, whatever it is, you sort of need to understand where that's coming from. And would that be an issue in your locker room? Will that be a problem with one of your guys? How does that play out? You need to understand, the leave of absence stuff, and we hope that he's healthy, and we all respect anyone's journey through mental health. But those are sort of sensitive things to get hold of, though. You can't just call up and be like, hey, how's your knee? It's different. It's a different kind of conversation than that. So even if you're the Ranger, and JT Miller has to waive to go to your team. So, you put all these different elements together and trying to make that deal work and be comfortable with it, especially when Vancouver is going to be wanting to trade JT Miller as though he's the 100-point guy who's a total alpha dog, guy you want in the playoffs, and there's no other sort of question marks about him. But that's not the reality for the other teams acquiring him, even though that's how Vancouver will be perceiving him in value. That's a hard trade to make. And I don't even know, Noodles, maybe you would know, if you're in management, if you're a coaching staff, are you allowed to ask a player about that? Do they have to tell you what they went on their leave out? Probably not. So I don't know how you answer those questions, but you'd have to have them answered before you pull a trigger and send Snyder and Heedle over in a first-round pick or whoever it might end up being.
Johnny, it wouldn't be hard to back-channel that information.
You think so?
If you really wanted to.
See, I don't know. Like, a guy takes a leave. You don't really have to tell anyone.
No, I know, but I'm sure there's guys that are close to the situation on the team that would. There's ways of finding out. If one of us really wanted to find out, I'm sure we could find out what the hell what that was all about.
But they've kept pretty quiet, like the nature of the Pettersson-Miller thing. That hasn't sort of like they don't like each other. That's pretty opaque. Like it's not really clear why they don't like each other. And Vancouver's a passionate market, and that hasn't sort of come out yet. And maybe you're right, maybe you could find it out, but it feels like it's not quite as easy as other kind of questions you might have about players when you want to make a trade.
But this is and this is, I don't know the answer to this. If it's a mental health thing, then you're right, the nature of it, but it is on your file because you've had to go through the process. And like if you're trading for somebody who's had shoulder surgery, you're going to look at the doctor's file. You're going to see what the nature of the problem is. But
it doesn't say Noodles mental health break because of substance abuse. Noodles mental health break because of gambling. It's like it doesn't say that on there. It just says mental health break, and that's confidential between him and his doctors, as it should be. Right. So I don't know how you get that. I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's just it's the type of research that's maybe makes this a little bit more complex based on looking forward and having that player in your dressing room in your organization and for the future. He's got term on his deal. Let's not forget too.
So Johnny, what's the let's apply the mini-Gerry to the Vancouver Canucks qualifying for the playoffs.
Okay, I'm going to say
watch yourself now.
I'm going to say 42%.
Okay.
And that is based on, I think in the West, we talked about the East, maybe 5 or 6 teams spoken for. I think in the West, 7 teams are spoken for. I really do. I think the Pacific, those 4 guys, it's going to be 3 of those 4, and then the Central with Winnipeg and Dallas and Colorado and Minnesota, right? You got LA, Vegas, Edmonton. I don't think those guys, Calgary or Vancouver, are catching any of those teams. So there's one team up for grabs. Calgary's got the inside track. Somehow, maybe because of overall talent, maybe because of last year, maybe because of the expectations of Calgary this year, it doesn't feel like a guarantee that Calgary's going to get to 96 points. Do they have a blip in their game? Who knows? So they're out of the playoffs now, so it's less than 50-50. But if they clear up JT Miller, do they get some players back that will help them from another team? And then do they go get Elias Pettersson back? Like, that's the guy they need back. When they make a trade, they have Quinn Hughes who's having a Norris-caliber season. Their goaltending is fine with Lankin, although Demko's not been very good. But Pettersson's playing at what, you guys, I don't even have in front of me. He's playing at like a 50-point pace. Like, you need to be a 100-point pace with that guy. But maybe when all this finally plays itself out, you get something like him back. If you do, plus reinforcements, then I think they can go catch Calgary, 42%.
All right, Johnny, what's your mini-Gerry on Bobby McMann sticking on the top line with Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner well beyond the return of Matthew Knies?
Wow. 8%.
That low? Uh-oh. Okay.
I think like when Matthew Knies is healthy and everyone's back?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I mean, a few different reasons. One, they're going to get another forward, right? If that forward's a centerman, if it's a winger, he's going to bump McMann out of the top 6, right? If that guy's a centerman, he's going to bump Domi out of that spot, and I think Max Domi has a better chance of going long-term up there like he did last year. And then you can play Knies with Nylander and Tavares if you want.
He's got to play a lot better for that, though. I mean, Max should not be gift wrapped, and I know you're not suggesting that, but if I'm going into a game tonight, who do I think is going to have a more impact on the game? It's Bobby McMann over Max Domi. all
No
day
doubt.
the way they're playing right now.
No doubt. But I think McMann is a good player at what he does well. Like, he's a very fast skater. He's a good shooter, strong guy. He can finish chances because he's got a nice shot, nice release. He's not a sort of yet gifted player at reading the offensive play. Like in the offensive zone, he doesn't facilitate very much. He's a finisher. He's a straight line guy. He'll create for himself. He doesn't create too much for others. And I think if you're going to play with Matthews and Marner, that part of your game, even if it's not your bread and butter, has probably got to be a little bit better than he is right now. So I would say it's not a great chance. And if he sticks long term, then I don't think the Leafs will have done what they anticipated doing by the trade deadline.
Okay. Yeah, that's reasonable. I mean, listen, I think he's played really well. I think his stories are really, really positive.
I'm not trying to downplay it.
No, I understand
he is a valuable player of their team. Like, if you can plug a third-line guy or let's call him a middle six winger. Now he's going above that, but let's call him a middle six winger who's no frills, doesn't make a lot of money, doesn't kill you defensively, will score 20-ish goals, even if he only gets 10 assists or 12 assists. Doesn't kill. That's an important player. But you kind of found that you didn't have to draft and develop from the time they're 18. He's been absolutely a gold mine for them. I just think Marner and Matthews, and I also maybe not as much anymore, but I do know that Austin Matthews has had opinions about who he likes to play with before in his time with Toronto, and it doesn't seem like it's working. He kind of can express that at times, and so if it's not working, Mitch Marner's not going anywhere. It would be the winger as well. But that's to take nothing away from McMann. I just don't know if it's a perfect fit.
Yeah, and listen, Knies has done enough to deserve that spot. When he returns, I don't know how long he's going to be out for, but he's played very well. And Bobby McMann has to represent, and likely the plan is for him to represent that secondary scoring that they've lacked in the playoffs, right? And he was hurt last year against Boston, and that was a significant loss. And if he's on that third line or fourth line, if they're lucky, I doubt it, but if they have so much depth where they push him down, that's a guy that I think can chip in a goal or two in a series, playing 10, 12 minutes a night. And they've been lacking that for a long time.
He has the ability. Yeah, you don't need to count on him, and it might only be one time. And so often for the Leafs in their playoff run, they've been looking like, yes, we look to the big guys. Where's their signature game? Go get a hat trick. But also, all those tight games, just one random hero, one, Matt Stajan jump up, one Alan McCauley have a run. And Bobby McMann could be one of those guys that's maybe not a huge scorer in the regular season, but could he get 3 goals in 7 games, including a game winner? He for sure could, because the way that he plays, and the way that he plays, Hayes, to kind of flesh this out, he doesn't need to play with great players because he's kind of an individual guy. His speed, his shot creates a lot so that he can play for the devil lineup, preferred matchups, and he'll still get his looks because he is so fast.
Right. Yeah, he can move, man. And you look at the goal he scored the other night. He gets that shot off. Yeah, and he's become an everyday guy, and that's credit to him. He wasn't a kid when he showed up. Came out of nowhere.
Well, if you were to rank, Izzy, where would he be in the Leaf forwards when you rank him? Importance, whatever you want to call it. Where would he be for you? If everyone's healthy.
Yeah, let's say the core 4 is out of the way. Knies is out of the way.
Yep.
Would he be possibly right after
6 or 7?
Yeah.
He's 6 or 7.
6 or 7, right?
Yeah.
That's really important. Now, you'd love to make some acquisitions or have some growth from Domi or Robertson to knock him to 8 or 9 because your team's if he's number 9 on your team, you got a good group of forwards.
Yes.
You got a good group of forwards that are all being relatively productive.
Right, and Max has the ability to do that, and I think Domi, the hope will be that that's what Domi can and will do, and then maybe they acquire somebody that does push him down. But that's exactly it. That's the sign, because there's going to be injuries, and you need guys to plug in, and that's usually the teams. The last team standing is the one that has a guy on the third line that would be on the second line on any other team.
That's why Johnny said they'd be going for look because. From 1 to 6, you're pretty comfortable. From 6 to 12, that's where there's some coin flip stuff going on there, right?
Yeah,
and
for sure.
A lot of teams, not just the Leafs. I'm just saying, but that's, when we're talking specifically about the Leafs, that's where Johnny's saying if you go and add somebody in, we'll call it the 7 hole, now all of a sudden you've got some good players fighting for the 8, if that makes sense. And,
big time.
And that's where your depth comes in, because right now it's 7 to 12, Johnny. Would you say a lot of them are plug and play interchangeable?
Yeah, they're all kind of different too, right? But they just haven't meshed to make them. Remember how good Toronto looked for, 4 games when McMann and Robertson and Domi got hot? Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh my, this is outrageous. Now, they could never play at that level, but those 7 to 12 guys haven't chipped in offensively with great consistency. Now, McMahon is on pace for 20-something goals. Nick Robertson's almost on pace for 20-something goals when it's all said and done. Max has been a real sore point in the production of their third line. Now, I know he's probably not a centerman, ideally in the NHL, and he took that on. He was injured to start the year. He still plays with sort of passion and energy, but productivity for him, if he could pick up to somewhere, even if he doesn't score a bunch, but produces points because he's getting goals. Like, what did he have last year? 48 points? 47
A lot of
points?
assists, too, right? 5-on-5, a ton.
Right.
I think from January on, he led the Leafs in 5-on-5 scoring. Mm-hmm. And certainly led them in 5-on-5 assists. So a lot of that was playing with Austin Matthews, which takes us back to the very original question, which is why he might someday get a shot back there if it doesn't, Knies goes somewhere else. But yeah, they are not quite plug and play to me, Noodles, because they all, Camp is not the same as Dewar, it's not the same as Reeves, it's not the same as Robertson. They're not all the same player, but they unfortunately have had very similar results, regardless of how you mixed and matched how they play or who they play with.
Johnny, just quickly, I'm sure you've seen Jonas, our esteemed colleague's list in his combo piece with Chris Johnston about the centermen that they're targeting or should be targeting. Quickly, who would you pick of that list? It's all the usual suspects.
Yeah, I saw Ryan O'Reilly on there. I saw Gord. I saw Brock Nelson was on there. Obviously Ryan O'Reilly would be. He'd be the hardest to get, but I think he would be the best person by far for the job. Noodles and I've had this I think Brock Nelson would be a pretty good fit. And Noodles had a game where Brock Nelson played terrible, so I think he's a little scarred.
I just think Brock Nelson is a good player, but he skates around. There's a black cloud over his head when he skates around. What's that Charlie Brown with that guy that skates around? Pigpen. That's how I view Brock Nelson. His body language is just, I don't know what it is. He's a really good player, but it just, I look at him and it's just I don't know, he looks like an energy vampire. I don't know what it, he doesn't play with a lot of jam and pace, and it's just he's a good player, but I don't know. I've seen guys like that where, is he going to add to the group or is he going to, suck some energy out of the group? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. It's not just one game. I've watched him throughout his career. I think he's a really good player. Don't get me wrong, but there's something about the body language. I don't know, he's overly aggressive.
That's a no-fly zone for me. I'll tell you that right now, Noodles. No-fly zone.
Listen, don't take my opinion on it. I'm saying watch the guy. He's a good player, and Johnny and I just have differing views on, what this guy brings to the table, and maybe a different setting too. Keep in mind he's played in the island forever, right? So the grass might be greener on the other side.
I'm just so leery of going for energy and jam and not offense. You want everything, of course, which is why Ryan O'Reilly brings all those different things, right? But I don't want, if I'm Toronto, we've had this conversation 7 years in a row. They need help scoring. Clearly on this team, they need help scoring.
No, you're right.
Couple of different thoughts. Obviously, Nas would be incredible. I don't know if Calgary falls out of it with Nas and Kadri. If they want a guy with term, or what about? What do you think if Boston falls out of it and Cam Neal is we need to make changes, and there's not that many guys unrestricted guys. They got Trent Frederick, they got Marchand, but guys with term, Pavel Zacha, Charlie Coyle. Do either of these guys get your antenna going at all?
Pavel Zacha does not even
register.
I'm forgetting you ever said that.
I don't mind Zacha.
Coyle's intriguing.
Coyle's heavier, but I don't think he's a natural scorer. I think Zacha's got more upside. Zacha's a better offensive player. Coyle is a solid. On a good team, he plays in the
third line.
Third line, 7
McMann, and somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, I just
kind of talking me into it, Johnny.
A guy, he could, there's a guy, like, he might not hear from him, but he'll chip in Game 6 with a timely goal late. You're like, where'd that guy come from? He's Nick Paul, right? Like,
I tell you what, I like it. I like that talk.
They need it. They need a Nick Paul. That's what they need.
I think they'll be scouring for not just the obvious Jonas, CJ's article, which are like the obvious sort of candidates out there, but even guys with a year or two left, which both those guys at Boston have, and I don't know if they're available or not, but like those kind of conversations, guys with a year left, is the cap going to go up to 93? Got to go to 95? Like, where's that going to go with everything else that's going on in the business-wise? Yeah. These are all things that the Leafs have to consider when they expand their search, trying to give themselves the best chance. Because, again, I don't know, guys, does this year feel like, not just for Toronto, but for all the teams in the East, it's an incredible opportunity, because I don't think there's any team that is like a supernova team. Even Florida, who we all sort of fear because of how good their core is, they're not quite as good. And the Rangers and the Devils and Wash is sort of new to it. They look incredible, but they're sort of new to it. And that's why if you're Toronto, you got to go all in again. Like, you have to, because the opportunity is once again there. And maybe even more so without a Boston or a Tampa or a Florida seem to be sort of a cut above.
I'm with you on that assessment, and I think that's likely going to lead to some fireworks, but we need teams that are willing to trade pieces, for all of those fireworks to finally take off. But we'll see where it goes. All right, Johnny, have a great weekend. Thank you for doing this.
All right, fellas. Have a good weekend.
Mike Johnson joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Count on Maple Toyota for the right winter tire package for your Toyota. Trade in your old tires, buy a new set, and get $40 back. Visit mapletoyota.com.
Johnny's segment is quickly becoming just mini-Gerry.
Yeah, mini-Gerry whenever he's on. There's so much Jerry material, It
never stops.
It never stops, and I think it continues next week. Yeah. All right, Luke Wilson, Al's brother, in about a half an hour. Dear Hazy B, in an hour. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. Mail It In Friday is brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. This January at BP, get delicious, mouth-watering pastas starting at $11.99 every single day. Enjoy the pastas you love at the prices you can't miss. Hustle in your local BP tonight. So, Dear Hazy B, in about an hour. And we've got Luke and Al's brother coming up. So, big games this weekend. This is the thing about the NFL and the CFL, for that matter, college football. The fact that there's a weekly build-up, it just, like, I want to watch this game so badly, Bills-Chiefs. I want to watch it right now. I want to see them play right now, and I have to wait 48 hours. And same thing with Commanders-Eagles, and the season flies by, man. We're talking about how slow January is. We got 3 games left in the NFL season, and then you got to wait 7 months.
Are you convinced the winner of Chiefs-Bills, and this could be a layup question, wins the Super Bowl handily?
I can't say I'm convinced, and I wouldn't say handily, but yes, they'll be big favorites, and I think they'll win. I think they'll win. I think most people would probably say that too, but football's crazy, man. The Eagles are a good team.
Unless they beat the hell out of each other, though. I mean, it could be an absolute.
There's 2 weeks after it. There's 2-week break. Go ahead, beat the hell out of each other.
They're both healthy.
2 weeks.
They're both healthy. Kansas City and Buffalo are healthy. Like the injury reports indicate, everything's good in Kansas City. Buffalo might be missing one player, maybe, but that's a good thing too, right? You don't want juggernauts colliding and one of them's missing a major piece or whatever.
Right.
And all 4 teams I think are in a pretty good position. And
well, who's hurt that's coming back though? Was it
for who? Buffalo?
No, not Buffalo. I just thought I read it. I'm drawing a blank on it. It's the quarterback.
Jalen Hurts?
Hurts, yeah.
Yeah, Hurts. He's been banged up, but he's going to
be fine, right?
He's going to be okay.
I don't know if he's going to be fine, man. He looks like he is, like, hobbling.
He's laboring, but he's going to play, I guess is the point. Like,
well,
you're not going to take him out of the game. But I saw a crazy stat, actually, on him, which seems counterintuitive based on modern football, that when he throws the ball for less than 150 yards or something, they're undefeated. When he throws over 150 yards, they lose all the time.
That is crazy, man.
That's crazy.
And what does it say about him? He can't throw, shouldn't throw? Like,
I guess don't put the ball in danger of turning over and just give the ball to Saquon Barkley and get the hell out of the way.
Yeah,
You know?
I don't know if it was Al's brother in our little group chat where last week he was like, he just looked so stiff out there. Like he just looked immobile. Like he wasn't hardly moving.
Yeah, that's a big issue. And obviously Dan Quinn's going to be game planning for that. But
no kidding.
Yeah, injuries are wild right now. You see Djokovic had to pull the chute after one set last night against Zverev at the Australian Open, and they booed him. Some people booed him off the court.
Well, I don't think they were booing. I think they were booing the circumstances, weren't they? Were like, this was our chance to watch this guy, and he just leaves after that. And what are we supposed to do now? We're going home? That sucks for us. Boo.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could have been a ticket issue, of course.
Yeah, it was the circumstance. They were like, this is what we're having to deal with right now. Sucks for us.
And that's reasonable. And he lost in a tie break, and I think a lot of people, and I was watching it, and ESPN I thought did a really good job afterwards, wondering if he won that, does he pull the chute? If he's up one set, does Djokovic find a way to battle?
Dude, I
through
say
the
it about
second
players
set?
in the NHL where it's like, if they were rocking a shutout or they had 3 goals in the second period, like there's a lot of
What's going
check,
on?
please.
It's on tour right now, right? Like 76. Oh, bad boiler. I'm not feeling well.
Dude, our boy Max Homa did it this week.
Yeah, pulled the chute.
He pulled the
I'm outta
chute.
here. Not
Dude,
feeling
by
well.
the way, that Farmers, don't be shocked if they have a new sponsor next year.
It's a disaster right now.
Dude,
it looks like a Corn Ferry leaderboard.
It is, with 2 or 3 unbelievable players that are up near the leaderboard. Matsuyama, Keegan Bradley, Oberg.
Yeah.
And
Sanjay.
guys, everyone just pulled the chute because they knew the Genesis is going back there. I don't know why that would make you pull the chute if you committed to the event. But Farmers has got to be on the horn to Monahan and being like, this is what our tournament... Dude, you remember
terrible.
what the Farmers used to be?
Oh,
it used to be the
Tiger.
start of Tiger Woods' season.
That's right.
And now you got this?
But
embarrassing.
Weren't they sick though? Isn't it like a flu going around or something
and
like that?
I'm sure there is accuracy to that for sure.
Right.
But I think and there is some context. They had a wind delay yesterday. I think a lot of guys knew I'm not making the cut, so I'm pulling the chute. I'm out of here. What's the point of me waiting around and go back?
Fair
out
enough. Fair enough.
Play 3 holes and finish my 78 and miss the cut anyway. I think that's kind of where Homa was at. Homa is not playing well, but. Yeah, it's not good, man. It's like the Farmers is a big tournament. Torrey Pines is a historic spot, and you're right. This is where Tiger Woods would go and play and win every single year.
Yeah,
he won like 6 times.
It was his kickoff to the season. He'd start in Dubai, and then he would go to the Farmers and win, and then he would just show up at other places and start crushing guys.
Yeah.
Dude, they had an unbelievable stat about him. Scotty Scheffler, like to come close to Tiger's weeks at number 1, he would have to go on a heater at number 1 from now until like 2035.
Yeah.
To match the weeks at number 1 that Tiger Woods was at.
10 years in a row as number 1 he'd have to be to match him, to tie him, because he was number 1 in the world for like 628 weeks in a row or something crazy like that. Yeah, it's absurd. And he issued a statement about them not playing at Riviera and them going to Torrey Pines. It sounds like he will play there in a few weeks. And Scotty Scheffler's back. Scheffler he's committed to the AT&T next week at Pebble, which is an elevated event, but he'll be out there playing. So they need him. They need star power. They need a good leaderboard. And yeah, this week at the Farmers though, it's a mess. And then Djokovic pulls out of the Australian Open. You've got injuries everywhere. Every sport, it's like nonstop injury chatter.
That's why it's like all these sports science guys. Like I get it, smart people, but. What are we telling people? Like, what are we doing here? All this smart stuff that you're doing, and it's not like if I was meeting with sports science people, I'd be like, I want my guys to be playing games. Obviously, the performance has to be there, but if there's groins and there's this and that, and constantly guys being injured, the Jays have dealt with it. As soon as they came up with the sports science, the guys started dropping like flies. We have a state-of-the-art place. Oh, great.
I think scheduling has a lot to do with it as well. Like I think the league has to look at you're at the mercy of building availabilities or you name it, whatever sport you're in. But you look at some of the schedules of these teams that they have to go through, whether it's flying, time zone, time change, all of that, back-to-backs. Like if you want your sport, like I'll look at the NBA. The NBA's viewership is down, right? That's a proven fact. They're talking about, it's the fan going, I don't know who I'm going to watch tonight because, it's a back-to-back. Well, that top player's not playing because of sports science, because he doesn't to me, if you got to alleviate that problem, don't have back-to-backs. Then there's no excuse for these guys to sit out. You've got to find ways around, because right now the players control what's going on. Now you've got to find a way to get that, some sort of, not leverage is the
Jamie,
wrong
the
word.
idea that needs to be addressed is less games, but the owners will never do that.
No, I understand.
Well, and who's to say that players won't take advantage of less games? I'm not convinced that they won't. Because,
how?
And the reality of
how would players
sports,
take advantage of less games?
Because they'll still say I'm not playing.
Oh,
They're still
come
getting
on.
paid. What is it? Why would they have more pride about playing 60 instead of 82? I'm not convinced of that at all. That players won't. Not feeling great.
Well, who's the guy that we always talk about that we should have, that misses games and Simmons. Ben Simmons.
Ben Simmons, yeah, of course.
That guy would be.
Ben Simmons never plays.
Long gone.
It could be a 10-game season. It doesn't matter. He's not playing. And
That's
the
embarrassing.
reality.
What a legacy. I'm that guy. That's crazy.
That's his legacy, that he just doesn't play. And there's guys like that in almost every sport. It's different in the NFL because there's guaranteed contracts. You don't have them, right? You want bonuses. You want to play next year. We'll just cut you if you don't play. That's the nature of the NFL, is you have to play. Outside of very few guys who are so good and superstars and they get the guaranteed money, 70% of the league is if I say I'm not in the mood to play or I have a bad hamstring, I'm cut and I'm done.
Right.
And it's not fun. It's not easy. There's the Players Association can't appreciate it, but that's why the NFL owners are never giving that up, man.
Yeah.
Never giving that up.
As far as the NHL goes, Hayes, it's just another layer of the league being watered down. Where it's guys would never, there's some third and fourth line guys that are I'm not sure if I can go tonight. Where before, when the league was stacked and everyone was loaded, it would be here, someone else is going to play.
You're gone.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's another way in a watered down environment where guys are just they got to keep me because our team, we don't have anybody else, so I don't feel like playing. Mm-hmm. There's no internal competition, and they're so desperate to keep guys and have guys. That's what's giving them the leverage to be able to do this. It's crazy stuff.
Yeah, and guaranteed contracts, right? If you're on the third line, you get a 4-year deal. Where are you, guys?
Where are you going to put me? No movement clause.
They get no movements. That's the crazy thing. It's here's a 4-year deal with a full no move. You're on the third line.
That's a little rich.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah.
But that's the reality. And golf is a little different because it's independent. You got to go play. You kind of got to eat what you kill in golf. The top guys are going to get paid anyway, but a lot of it still is you're an independent contractor. You got to go out there and play, and still the top guys are making it easier on themselves, right? That's why they want elevated events and less cards. So it's just guaranteed I show up and I guaranteed to make money. It's crazy. All right, Luke and Al's brother coming up in about 15 minutes. Dear Hazy B at 6:30. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, Luke Wilson, Al's brother, coming up. We'll get into our picks and look ahead to the weekend. Ask Luke about Pete Carroll getting the job with the Raiders. I want to ask Al's brother about this Paul Skenes rookie card story. I'm sure you guys have
Why
seen.
does he want the card back so bad? Is what I don't understand. He's offering a fortune for that.
Yeah, well, in conjunction with the Pirates. The Pirates are doing
season
it on his
tickets,
behalf.
Game with the girlfriend.
Yeah.
What is it about this card that he wants it back so bad?
This is why we have to ask Al's brother, because I don't understand it. I mean, it's a one-of-one rookie card, which is what
did the kid say, by the way? He said no way?
He said no thanks. Well, and honestly...
Well, he lives in California, right?
That's the thing, and that would be my instinct, too. It's why do you guys want it so badly? Why do you know it's worth, a lot?
Right.
But you're gambling that Skenes does turn into the guy that you think he's going to turn in. If he blows his arm out a couple times and just becomes a guy, who cares about the Paul Skenes rookie card? You're taking a gamble here. So an 11-year-old kid found the card, this one-of-one card. Again, Al's brother will have to explain it. But the Pirates and Skenes, I guess, were offering this kid, anyone that found it, prior to knowing who would find it, season tickets, 2 tickets right behind home plate for 30 years.
Means nothing to the kid because he lives in Cali.
Exactly. A meet and greet with Skenes, a bunch of free swag, and there were a couple of other details in it. And again, this was before they knew who was going to find it. And I guess this 11-year-old kid in Cali said, "No, thanks, man. I'm keeping this thing." And maybe he sells it. Maybe he holds on to it. And if Skenes turns into Nolan Ryan or whatever, it could be worth a fortune. But
what if he turns into Alec Manoah?
Exactly, Noodles. Like the Alec Manoah one-of-one rookie card, I'm sorry, is not getting you anything right now.
There's a mini-Gerry for you right there.
Oh, there's
Alec Manoah resurfaces and becomes a dominant pitcher in the AL East. Hit me with something, Hayes.
10%. 10%. And I don't know if that's low or high based on your reaction, but I don't see how you could possibly – I don't know when he's going to be available to start and pitch at all this year. I'm not sure he will pitch at all this year.
It was almost like the response had to be last year, where it was like what happened before was a blip.
Right.
And like a comeback now after another. I don't even know what.
Unfortunately, it'll be like 3 years removed from dominance.
Yeah,
3 years removed. The chances of returning to dominance is very
stop with the pictures of working out and losing.
Yeah,
stop it.
Yeah.
Stop
where's the Grapplers, Randy Johnson?
Nobody knows. Nobody knows the answer to that.
Remember that?
Oh, I remember that. The Grappler, he reminds us every once in a while. Final hour coming up. Luke Willson, Al's brother. Dear Hazy B, OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.